Well, it is a rainy day here in Metro Atlanta, but I'll take the rain because it is spring going into summer, and I will take a warm rain over a bright, sunny, cold day anytime. So, as you saw yesterday in yesterday's little vlog, I'm doing a daily vlog in case you're just watching this video for the first time. I have decided, which I've never ever done, I've decided to do a daily vlog on this bathroom renovation I'm currently on, meaning that I will post a video a day until the job is complete from well, it wasn't really day one. Day one was the tear out process, and I didn't really post that. I did post what the bathroom looked like to begin with, before I started getting into the rebuild process, and now the rebuild process is well underway. For those of you wondering, the rebuild process, the prep is everything. So the prep is very time consuming. This is basically about a 12-day job, 13-day job. And out of those 12 or 13 days, about 10 of those days are going to be prep. About 8 to 10 are going to be prep, and the last probably 3 days are going to be the tiling process. So the prep is very time consuming, but it matters a lot. So that's why I'm kind of posting a vlog a day rather than to bore you with the whole process. I'm trying to, succinctly as possible, show the important parts. There are some parts where I'll be showing the process, as I did yesterday with some of the plumbing, and then some of it is just kind of before and after. I'm just telling you what I'm going to do, and then I show it after. But anyway, so just in case you're kind of falling into this, which is day 3, you can go backward and look at day 2 and day 1, and the process will move along until I'm complete. So as you saw yesterday, or maybe you didn't, I completed all the plumbing. Almost all the plumbing. I am on my way back to Ferguson to try and figure out this valve situation, which I rarely run into this little conundrum that I'm in today, where I've done my plumbing, but I haven't plumbed in my valves. So that is holding me back a little bit, and I'm going to try and rectify that today, hopefully. Moving on forward from today, even if I don't get the valves and I have to move on, which I do, I will be scabbing in the 2x6s between the studs on the shower, and then at that point I can put my pan liner, since the drain is already in place, I can put my pan liner down and set my mortar in my pan. I may or may not show that process. I have a lot of videos. I have over 300 videos on my YouTube channel, and I have a couple of them where I'm showing the shower pan process. So there are a lot of other tilers out there that have different ways to pour a shower pan to set their mortar, and I have tried different methods myself. The method that I prefer is the one that you will see on my videos. There is this mindset that there is only one way to accomplish a task, and there are other tilers out there and other videos where you can watch a shower pan being set with all the mortar around the perimeter, and that tightly packed in and leveled off 4 inches, 5 inches off of the wall, and then all the remaining mortar gets sloped down to the drain. That's a nice, neat process, and that takes just as long, if not longer, than the way that I do it. So because I decide that I don't like doing that, that's not my preference, that's not the way I like doing it. It doesn't make it right or wrong, it just makes it is what it is. But having said that, I am nearing my 30,000 mark. Today is Wednesday, and I think by Friday I will have 30,000 subscribers, which I'm humbled by. I really appreciate every last one of my subscribers. I'll probably try and do some type of little giveaway for the 30,000th person that comes along. If I can ascertain who that person is, then I will probably do a little giveaway on that. Anyway, speaking of subscribers, and I'm, as I said, very humbled. There is another guy out there, another tiler, Landberg, Landburg, Tile. If you just start spelling that, and I think you'll find his videos very educational. I think you'll find his content to be not necessarily the same as mine. You know, everybody has their own style, but you know, you can extrapolate a lot of education and information from his videos. So, you know, go over to his channel and hit the subscribe button. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Anyway, moving on, I'm going to take care of my business over here at the plumbing place, and then I'm going to get back to the job site and start that process. Okay, my lovely valve that I spent so much time getting, look how much I slopped it up. So what happens, I use MAP gas. A lot of you might use propane. MAP gas heats things up very, very quickly. And I have brass here, which is harder to heat up than the copper. So by the time I start the copper, yeah, it gets very hot. And then of course I'm very liberal with my solder. So it doesn't look pretty, but it works. Also, if you're going to be trying that, this is a Positemp valve by Moen, obviously, but all of them have plastic cartridges. Take the cartridge out before you do any heat. You see these gaskets on the side, and there's gaskets on the middle and inside and all this stuff, so you don't want to heat that up. You will have a bad day if you try and sweat any valve with the cartridge still in it. This one goes in really easy. It pushes all the way back, has a locking pin that goes in the top, and same way over here. Ooh. Oh, so let me show you. Shower head will be right there, a little bit off where it was before, if you can see those lines, so that the valve is completely center. The drain is completely center with the valve, and same on this side. So the drain and the valve are center. In this case, as I said before, when I started the video, we are doing a slider. There's a slider bar that's going to go off to the right here. I'm going to actually have to put a couple of studs in there to make sure that I have something to anchor it to. Also, because of it's a slider bar, there's eventually going to be a nipple that comes out of this female end. Probably going to be a 1-inch nipple, double-sided male nipple, as it were, so that the other side with that with the pretty piece has the female threads on the inside, that it will go on the other side of this and pushed up against the tile as a final process. Then the hose will come out of that, and it'll hang down over here and go up, and there'll be a slider, and then the handheld. So there'll be no shower head over here, I guess is my point. So I have to get it away from the discussion. The discussion is going to be around here. And I had to move it over. I can't move it over too far because my shower isn't that wide. There's my other cartridge with the pin. Also, another important thing to mention, I mentioned this on a couple of videos ago. This is called a mud guard, and when everything is finished and put in, the mud guard goes back in. This is a parameter of your finished tile. The outside here, it's about 1 1/8 or so. That they give you, but this is the outside furthest you can go with your finished wall. This is the minimum you can go, where my thumb is at, with your finished wall. So they give you a pretty wide parameter, but not only does that protect the valve while you're working, but it also gives you a side view when your wallboard goes up and your tile is finally finished, where that finished tile needs to be, either on the inside or the outside. But this is a definite, don't throw this away when you pull it out of the box. There's a reason they have those. Good shower valves will have those anyway. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to show the process of sweating. You can see I put 90s on here from yesterday. I put 90s. I've taken care of this part, which is, you know, the body of the valve itself. This is all ready to go. Where's my... So this has to go at the bottom, same as on the other side. This would normally be your tub. We're not doing a tub, so that needs to go there, and then, yeah. So I'm going to sweat all this together. I'm going to get it anchored in. I'm going to put a 2x4 up here to anchor this, a couple of 2x4 cross sections so that I have something for my slider to anchor onto. And I'm going to move on finally to why I'm here, to build a shower. I mean, this is part of building a shower, but this is a long, tedious process, especially here, because everything is basically from scratch, as if it were never there to begin with, since I had to replumb everything. Anyway, I'm going to get to work. Okay, this side is sweated in a little less sloppy than I did on the other side, and trust me, I didn't intentionally make it less sloppy. I have some nice solders going on, which I like seeing, but in the end, it is functionality that matters and not looks. So what we have here, as I told you before, there's going to be a slider bar off to the right here. This valve, which is normally a shower head, is now feeding this part here, which is a female. It's going to come out about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. By the time I'm done with my wallboard and my tile, it'll be about 1 inch or 1.5 inch nipple. That that other piece, the fancy piece, the piece you can see, actually screws onto. The hose will drop down here, and it'll come back up around, and it'll feed on this bar, which probably is going to be about 5 or 6 inches off of where the nipple is going to be. I've already marked my bottom end, my top end that's up there, so it'll be anchored through the tile and into this stud, and through the tile and into this stud, and then the actual faucet part, the handheld part will actually go onto the bar and slide up and down all the way down to this level here. So that's about it. There's a lot of pre-planning stuff that's involved. Oh, by the way, everything's anchored down. The pre-planning has to do with knowing my parameters, with regard to this. This is set back a little further than where this is. Putting this in place, the anchoring pieces in place is important. Anchoring this down is important. So yeah, it's all done. I don't know that this is not a DIY thing. I don't know if it is or not. I'm putting this out there because this is part of the process of building a shower. And so even if you're not going to, you understand all the time and complications that it takes. But everything is centered now, perfectly center down to the drain, and the distance is even. The distance is even with the drain, and this is perfectly center also with the drain. So that's it. I'm going to wrap things up. I'm going to clean up all my mess, and I'm going to get started. Finally, yay! On the shower pan. I'll put up my scabbing first between all the studs. Get my pan liner outside warmed up a little bit. It does help to warm it up. It has a tendency of folding a lot easier. I got an extra large one this time as I went to the specialty store. I thought this was going to be an 8-foot long span. It's actually 7 and some inches. So I got a 10-foot length. So it's going to go way up the wall. I think it's a 5x also, and this is only 3. So it's going to go pretty much up the wall over there. It's not necessary to put it that high. Code says you only have to have it 3 inches above the curb, but I always would have a choice to have more than not enough. So I'm going to get started on that. Alright, the blocking is done. I didn't bore you with all the details about, well, I didn't show you video anyway, but I will bore you with the details about blocking. I started blocking many years ago, probably 19-20 years ago when I first started doing showers. I did not see blocking, and I thought, well, my pan is resting between the studs and the mortar is kind of pushing it back. So I just felt like that was the right thing to do. Nowadays, apparently, it's code in some areas, as I've recently found out, but I just always do it. Is it needed? Probably not. I just spend the extra 10 or 15 minutes to make it happen. When I run into situations like this, when I'm really close to the edge with a pipe or something like that, I notch out, and I do that with a chop saw. In case you were wondering, you can do it any way you want. Notch out for the supply lines when they're close to the wall. And then even sometimes when I have a very thin area, maybe 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch, I can cut a 6-inch piece of plywood, and I can shoot a couple of finish nails right in the top like I do with these nails, and I'm able to make it happen. If you happen to miss one little tiny area or something like that, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't sweat it too much, but I try and make it as continuous as possible, if at all possible. Now, here's another thing that's not possible. Some people feel like they want to notch out between these studs and stick the pan liner inside of that gap, the gap that would exist here if it was down there. I'm kind of funny about that. I feel like the back of that pan, when it's pushed back there, it wants to flop down, and then my mortar theoretically could run into that crack and yeah, if my motor is high enough, it could run into that crack and push that pan down, because you know, you really can't see it. In this case, when they built the house, they put 2x4s next to the 2x4s, and I couldn't make that happen even if I wanted it to. It's not necessarily a bad idea. It's an alternative to having the flaps folded on both sides. And when I do the pan liner, my flaps will be on the inside and on the inside here, inside of the back wall, not on the outside. So anyway, I'm going to get to that right now. I'm at the pan liner install stage. At this point right here, before you put the liner in, if you are a believer in a pre-slope, then this is the point you put your pre-slope. Let that dry overnight before you put your liner in. I'm not a believer in a pre-slope. If you watch my videos for longer than 6 months or a year, you would know that already. And I'm not going to go into all the reasons why, because I've done that on other videos, and if you want to research it, you're more than welcome to. But if you put a comment down there in the description telling me I should do a pre-slope and it's code and yada yada yada, be sure you put a link of the proof that you have. Some type of proof. Not because somebody said so or because an organization recommends it. Show me the proof. Put the link inside along with your comment. If you don't put a link of your proof, which you won't be able to do, then don't comment. Anyway, moving on. Sioux Chief are the drains that I bought at Home Depot. They have reconfigured these drain flanges slightly. They used to have holes in the flange. Now they just have a little notch out, so you can't put the screw in a hole anymore. You have to stick it by the notch out. Also, they've changed the color, which I don't agree with, and I've called them to find out why. And they believe that more people want these gray looking ones, although you only see a small part around the drain proper. They've also gotten rid of, there used to be a little groove. The groove here was for the caulking, and for whatever reason they've gotten rid of the groove, which I've never believed in anyway. I believe that most people don't have backups of their shower, and if you do have a backup, it's rectified really quickly. Therefore, all this caulking that you're doing along here is to prevent water from getting up under the pan liner should your shower back up. But again, I'm not a firm believer that people have showers that are backed up for any amount of time that it would cause you any damage. They're pretty much rectifying that situation right away. But I'm going to show you, or as I'm doing now, what you're supposed to do prior to pulling your liner back and doing the last phase, which is screwing it down to the bottom of the curb. And then you pull this as straight as you can and let that pan liner rest firmly. And I can feel it right there. Let it rest firmly on that bead of caulking that you put in there. And then you continue the process. The folds that I do in the corner, I get a lot of questions over the years about that. What do you do about the fold because it bumps it out? It doesn't bump it out a lot. By the time you put your wallboard in there, it's pushing it down. The minuscule amount that you get on a bump out, you're going to fill in with thin set on your wallboard anyway. You do a little thinner in the corner and then just go to normal thin set on your wall on the rest of the way. So that answers that question. What else do I get? There's other questions that I get. I can't remember what they were. Anyway, so this is the phase that I go through. When I'm putting my liner in, I'll wrap it around the curb. I'll do the same fold that you see on both of those sides, going that direction. And then I'll just turn it over. I don't use the dam corners. The dam corners, I don't know if you've seen them before or not, but they are to prevent, they go on the inside and then over the curb and up the wall. I don't do those because I never anticipate water is going to get on my curb for a lot of different reasons. If you watch my videos, you'll know my wallboard sets up off of the pan as well as the inside of here. Water cannot jump up to my wallboard ever, plus everything's red guarded, so water will never get up there, let alone wallboard or anything else, which is why I don't do the dam corners. I think they're damn stupid, but anyway, that's just me. I'm trying to make these videos less than the 40-minute first one that I did, but it's increasingly difficult because there's so much information. A lot of people don't watch my channel, so through the years I've posted stuff like this already, and they're aware of it, but you may not be if you're a new subscriber. when you're doing this liner, you're finding the center of your hole and you're cutting an X. Or this is the way I do it anyway. I have seen tilers time and time and again cutting a big old circle around the edge of their drain. Edge of their drain being around this area right here. And then they just cut a circle, and I really don't understand why you need to do that. This X causes the flaps to go down. When you put your final flange and you push it in, those flaps will go down. Another thing I see tilers do all the time is they're leaving their bolts in there, and then they're cutting the top of their pan liner on top of their bolt, and then pushing the pan liner through the bolt. It takes a much larger X to get the head of that bolt through your pan liner than it does if you find your hole with your finger and do a little tiny X. There is no way you can see this, but a little tiny X, and then I'm pushing it through with a lot of tension on it, so that I'm making sure that I'm not creating a larger hole than's necessary to get this bolt into that bottom flange. And that's as easy as it gets for me. I'm still amazed that other people can't just figure out this common sense logical way of doing things rather than relying on the videos that they're watching, where they create, especially where water is going to be, create potentially a bigger hazard than they need to. This is a very, very firm fit with the smaller X. As I said, with a larger X, to get it over the head, now you're going to be loose at the neck of it. So this is my method. Right, wrong, or indifferent. This makes more sense to me, rather than just follow the sheep, which it appears that everybody seems to want to do. Either they follow the sheep, or they go on to different forums on the internet where tilers, so-called professionals, tell them this is what you do because this is what they were taught or told to do, rather than think for themselves. In the end, it really doesn't matter to me how you do it, how it gets done, as long as you don't have any leaks. And this is the best way I know to preclude you from ever having a leak, by just not perforating any more than you need to. Basically is what I'm getting at. Alright, back those out a little bit. And then the last process, now you can clearly see. Very, very tight fit around those bolts. Putting this down to the larger hole that needs to go in there. Sometimes my X isn't quite big enough. But again, it's easier to cut a little bit more than it is to be too large. And then turning that locks it in. Hard to do with one hand. Much easier. So as I was saying from the beginning, I'm trying to do these videos less than 30 to 40 minutes. I don't know how, on a day-to-day basis, how long I'm going on these until I get home. And I don't want to skip a part that might be important to you. So, in fact, this is probably going on 5 minutes or longer. Probably doesn't need to be. But I think now that we're into this prep stage, I think it's important to know all this stuff. if you're going to do it yourself. And there it is, finished product. You can clearly see that the flaps are pushed down. There's no cut around there for the possibility, as I said before, if the shower comes up and floods out or whatever and water gets up under, that's what the caulking is for. But more importantly, it's going to have a much tougher time getting past those flaps than it ever will if you cut a big circle. That's why this is idiotic to me, that people would intentionally perforate. You saw how I left turned it, right? Lefty loosey. As soon as I hear that click, that lets me know that I'm locked into the threads. Don't mean to talk down to some of you guys, but some of you guys don't know this stuff. So, unfortunately right now, all I have is a larger level. I usually have the smaller one. This drain you can manipulate just slightly as you're pouring the mortar. I'm probably I'm about a 16th off from being level, which isn't bad. And on this side, it looks like about a 32nd off. That is good enough for government work. So I'm going to move on to pouring the pan. I'm not going to show a video of that. I have, I think, 2 or 3 videos going back a few years on how I do it. And as I already referenced before, I do things differently. Let me show you a little trick that some guys use. 2x4, 2.5 inches. You take a magic marker and you just put your 2x4 all around the perimeter. This is a larger shower than normal, so I'm gonna go a little higher with the mortar. But the point being, back there anyway. The point being is that you have a perimeter now with that magic marker that you can clearly see where your mortar is going to go. The other way is what a lot of people do that I referenced already. Pack your mortar in, start at one spot, start packing it in, probably about 3 or 4 inches around the perimeter all the way around. That's what you do first. And then the inset, you start putting your mortar on the inset now that you have a level surface going around. I don't do either way. When I do it, well, go look on my channel, you'll find out how I do it. It works for me. It's what I've gotten used to, it's what I like, and the end result is what matters. Before I get started on pouring this pan, I want to address the weep hole controversy. Controversy for me anyway, because there has been a lot of comments that I've had over the years as far as, you know, I should protect my weep holes, that pebbles should be put in there. Pebbles meaning small rocks, should be put in there up around the drain. Again, they've changed the feature on here. Instead of holes, now they have little slots. So there's 4 of those slots, plus on the inside of the drain there's a couple of recesses where the threads would go. So those recesses, as well as those slots, what used to be weep holes, would drain any water that potentially got into your pan. So the proposition is that you put rocks, small rocks around there. My contention has always been that a rock is very dense. Mortar is not dense. Water can travel through mortar. That's why you have the weep holes. In case the water gets in there, it can travel through the mortar. But in the day, when they were round, there were little holes. Those rocks are small that you're putting in there. My contention is that the rock is very dense, whereas your mortar is very porous. So you're probably causing more of a problem than you're solving. Then other people started putting spacers. So they would just bunch up a bunch of spacers around those weep holes. And again, when you start packing your mortar down and all that stuff, all the mortar gets entangled in all these rubber spacers. So imagine a couple of these spacers, because you don't know where they're going. A couple of those spacers, now you've compacted your mortar down onto those rubber spacers. The rubber is not porous. Water is not going to travel through there. If you're putting a piece of rubber down there to clog your weep hole, what are you helping? I don't know. Some people they don't think. They don't think. Their dues are they're told to do, and they only look at it for a brief second. Man, that makes sense. Don't clog your weep holes. Well, then what are you doing clogging your weep holes with things that are dense? So, an alternative, if you're concerned about it, I'm not anymore. I'm not concerned about that if water should get down there, minuscule at best, because I'm waterproofing my shower pan, the surface nowadays. They have what's called a weep hole protector. So this is perforated, see on the side here. They have little troughs on the top, and then the bottom, when you set this on the pan, you know, it creates basically what you have here. This little line here, you have all these lines, dozens of them, that set on the pan liner itself. So when you set that down, and there's one way to put it down where the label is, that side is up. When you screw that down, now, I always like to get my screws in line, the screws for the drain cap. So now you set your mortar on top of there, and now any water that travels down toward your weep hole area is traveling through there. And even if you had mortar that was filling that space, remember, mortar is porous, so water would get through that layer of mortar and give yourself a clear trough down to the weep hole area. So that's a weep hole protector. Of the three, this one would probably be the best. Does it work? I don't know. There's not a cutout, there's not a showing, nobody has ever showed that it actually works, but this makes more sense to me than putting pebbles or spacers or anything else that potentially block your holes rather than helping you. So now it's been about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. This is complete. All the lines that you see on the top of the bed are where my levels are. So you'll need different sized levels, and you put them on there. Make sure you have a good pitch going down. Good pitch going down. You'll need a short level on both sides, and try and get it as level as possible on the back, the front, the back, and this side and that side are actually level also. That helps you when you set your wallboard. Even though we're going to raise the wallboard about ½ inch or so off of the mortar pan, well, after the tile is done. Make sure your drain is level. This is the time to do it. If you need to adjust it, it has a little bit of play in it. What else? Oh, a couple of emails I've had in the last few months. People ask me type of mortar I use. This is at Home Depot. This is Quickcrete is a brand name, and it's just mortar mix. There are different types out there. I don't know that there's a bad type. This has a green stripe. The one with the red stripe dries really, really quick. So just know that the next day, that red stripe stuff, you're not scraping off. If you have a high spot somewhere, you're not scraping off nothing with the red stripe stuff. Type S mortar is not what you want. That has lime in it. You don't want lime in your mortar. Best way I can answer that. What else? So this is it. This is day 3. I have put in the valves. I have put in my drain. Well, I did that yesterday. I put in the shower pan, poured the pan. Again, doesn't seem like I did a lot. I don't know. For day 3, it's not too bad. I still feel like I'm behind. Tomorrow will be the wallboard. This will set up until, today's Wednesday. This will set up until probably Saturday, because eventually I have to red guard the top of that. I'm going to have a box fan on it 24/7. That box fan will not set directly on it. It'll set a couple feet back. It'll be on high speed. I'll also have the fan running, the fan up there, so I can get good ventilation and good air movement to dry out all that mortar bed all the way through Saturday. So every day I leave at nighttime, this fan will be on. Get it as dry as possible. One other thing, I had 6 bags. I thought I would use 6. I got away with 5, but I always have an extra one. So if I think I need 4, I have 5. If I think I need 6, I have 7. Just for FYI. I'm out of here. Day 3 is ended. Well, I still haven't made it to the job site yet. I'm still trying to hunt down these shower valve issues that I'm having with this mowing thing. As you recall, yesterday I had gone to Lowe's and bought this shower valve so that I can match up all of this trim kit for the slider. However, that shower valve is brushed nickel, And although this looks like brushed nickel, which it is, in reality, that is not brushed nickel. That's what they call spot resistant. So it looks like a brushed nickel, but it's spot resistant, which is not the same brushed nickel as here. So I had to go back to Ferguson, where I went yesterday, to try and figure all this stuff out so I could just get matching left and right is all I want to do ultimately. So Ferguson sold me, they sell in parts. It would be like buying a cell phone without the battery. So you got to buy the battery and the cell phone separately. And they sold me just the trim kit that will match. So I have the trim kit. I have 2 trim kits that will match exactly what she got, which is brushed nickel, not the spot resistance. And now I got to go back to Lowe's and return that because that's not going to work. This doesn't have the valves, and they don't have the valves for this particular trim kit. So now I have to go to a different Ferguson to go pick up the valves, and I'll be able to plumb in the valves and have that literally out of my way. So I'm happy about that. I'm excited to get the valves installed and get forward moving with this job without all of this chaos going on.